You know the deal. While everybody is losing their minds thinking that the market's going to crash, drop down to 10K, 4K, jacking themselves off to low price predictions, I'm here to remind you guys about some of the facts. And I want to start this off by just talking about what Bitcoin has been doing on the short-term time frame. As usual, we've seen continued sideways trading for Bitcoin on the very short-term time frames. This still does not look good. Just yesterday, we saw a nice little uptick here. We managed to pump up to 26.5. Nothing came of it. Bitcoin captured captured resistance again and has moved down again. But what we haven't done yet in any substantial way is we have not yet tested the downside. Now, obviously, you guys know the deal. I'm not as perma-bearish as everyone else in the space right now. I simply can't. We fucking doubled and we're consolidating now, so fuck me, I know. I'm just sticking to the books. We're just not that bearish as far as I see. But on this short-term time frame, when we're doing these kind of liquidity grabs to the upside, right here, right here, right here, you have to expect that we do the same thing to the downside. Does that mean we will? Of course not. But it's certainly possible. It's the exact characteristic that Bitcoin exhibits all the time, and that's why I have to highlight this to you before we continue on in this YouTube video. This does not have to mean something bad. In fact, as you continue to watch this video, you're going to see how this could actually play into something very, very useful for Bitcoin within this trend. If you guys are excited for it, do me a favor and smash up the likes as you come in on this YouTube video, and check out the links in the description down below for over $200,000 in bonuses. You've got BingX here, which allows you to trade traditional finance, Tesla, Amazon, Forex, indices, whatever you like, all with Bitcoin. Very, very useful exchange at a time like this. There's actually a trade on the S&P 500 that I'm about to set right there on BingX because the S&P 500 is looking spicy right now, and you know that I want to get in on some of that action. It's actually one of the easier assets to trade compared to Bitcoin right now, so that's why it's particularly interesting to me. So go ahead and check that out if you're interested. And of course, the best exchange on the planet. You're getting up to 30K on Bybit when you sign up using my link down below. But let's get into the video here and talk about some of the very interesting patterns that we're seeing on Bitcoin right now before we dive into Ethereum and some of the others a little bit more. But here's an interesting pattern that Bitcoin has been displaying over these last years. We're actually going back now 8 years on this chart, actually more than that, more like 12. I'm sorry, I can't do math anymore, like 9 years now, where Bitcoin has printed these broadening wedges over the course of, in some cases, multiple years. And what we've seen is a breakout above the wedge and then a back test, which is obviously one of the most typical signs of the market actually being very strong, is that the market trends up really nicely, slowly trends down, whether we form a broadening wedge or a triangle or a falling wedge or whatever you want to call it, some sort of continuation, some sort of consolidation pattern, followed by the breakout right there and the back test. You can actually see that the price spiked way above this broadening wedge, came back down, came for that kiss of life, and then rallied right back up to 20K. Over here, we had a broadening wedge again. This was the COVID crash of March 2020. We had the exact same situation, a broadening wedge, breakout, back test, off to the bloody moon. Same thing potentially playing out right now. This is why I actually can't be so scared compared to the other people in the space. I feel like I keep repeating myself, and that's because the factors don't change. I feel like, everyone's, just rubber banding between different camps in the Bitcoin space right now, just bullish, bearish, bullish, bearish, bullish, bearish. If you've been watching me for a while, you're going to know I've been holding on to this same Bitcoin long position right here for a very long time now, simply because the market just hasn't changed. Sentiment has changed. People have changed their opinions. They've changed their trading side and so on. And naturally, they've lost money because of it. But the market hasn't actually changed. And if we take a look at this actually puts things into perspective really nicely for us. We've got another broadening wedge. It's the same thing that Bitcoin has used many times before, and we are now coming back down for that back test. Here's a closer look at what we're actually dealing with here. This sideways range right here is roughly that 25, 26K area that we're just stuck at right now. And if we do end up falling a little bit lower, this is going to line up with some really interesting areas of support. Now, we've already covered this on the YouTube channel. These are areas that we know are important for the market. If we go ahead and take a look at this and zoom out just a little bit, we can start to get a really good understanding of this, where, Bitcoin has had some pretty decent support at these kind of $23,000, $22,000 areas for quite some time now. And we know that that's been the case because of, just the big retests, the big reversals that have happened at these levels. 21.5, absolutely critical level for the market. 24K, also a critical level for the market. 22.6. You can see all of these reversals just showing up at the same price areas. And what's really interesting is that if we actually do what I'm showing you here in this chart right now, that would fulfill another instance of these broadening wedges actually providing some support for Bitcoin when we get the breakout. So does that mean we're off to 70k and stuff like that? Of course not. It's way too early to talk about that kind of analysis just now at this particular moment. But what it does mean is that Bitcoin is following in its footsteps that it's followed in before, and as usual, nobody believes it. Nobody is bullish. Nobody is buying it. Nobody is buying it in a metaphorical sense and in a literal sense. Nobody's believing it, and nobody's actually buying the asset anyway. And meanwhile, we're doing the exact same things that have typically been incredibly bullish for Bitcoin in the past. So again, I try to bring a lot of realism to the market with you guys here on this YouTube channel. If you do appreciate it, you know exactly what to do. And with that in line here, it's just not something that's out of the ordinary for Bitcoin. Bitcoin does something bullish. It is bullish. We've doubled from the high and we're consolidating. We've doubled from the low and we're consolidating. And now people are losing their minds. So, again, I'm going to keep on falling down to this until I'm proven wrong. I'm very happy to be proven wrong. I've already made my money on the long position. I'm ready to trade short positions if the market tells me that's what I need to do. But as it stands right now, things are looking pretty decent to me. And here's something else that's interesting. Bitcoin previously actually formed a pattern that looks a little bit like this here, where we set a low, and then a slightly lower low, and then a very low low, and then we basically formed an inverse head and shoulders. And this is more or less exactly what Bitcoin has done recently, since 2022, where what we've actually done here is set the same kind of series of lows with that same kind of inverse head and shoulders pattern, and then just started to blow up from here. So we've got a few different macro patterns here showing us the same kind of thing, broadly speaking, in this market, which is that we're following in the same footsteps that Bitcoin has followed in before. And what gets really exciting is if we actually take a look at how high Bitcoin went from, back here, by the way, just for a point of reference, this is 14,000, this is 3,000, and this was, of course, 64,000. From that breakout point, this inverse head and shoulders neckline to the high that we actually set, Bitcoin managed to rise up by 524%. It managed to rise up by $55,000. Now, if we pull off the same dollar gain right now from where we are in this market at 26K, we rise up by $55,000. That does put us at $80,000. Now, again, I'm not saying that this kind of thing is what's going to happen, but if you're interested in how Bitcoin has followed in its footsteps in the past, then this is something that might be worth keeping an eye on. I don't necessarily think this is going to happen. I actually don't think this is going to happen, but I think it's worth looking at charts like this when everyone else is talking about $3,000, because you and I both know that if everyone in the fucking grandmother thinks that Bitcoin's dropping down to 3K, 6K, 9K, 12K, whatever the case may be, it's probably not going to happen. It might. Sometimes the masses are correct. Sometimes 90% of losers that always lose money are correct. But we both know that that's not typically what happens. And of course, that's why I would want to take all of these things with a pinch of salt. Now, I do want to shout out Trader Alan right here. This is actually the account that I've used to show you this analysis here. He actually put out the same analysis, so go ahead and check him out on Twitter if you're interested. You can see my Twitter with the link in the description as well if you want to go ahead and check that out, see the shit post that I'm putting out there. Very, very fun indeed. Now, obviously, the primary issue that we're facing with this idea is, if I go ahead and take a slightly cleaner chart, we do have, just a second, the fact that we've got this second retest is definitely, one of those signs that is potentially indicating a little bit more weakness in the market. I mean, typically when we did this kind of thing in the past, this would be it, and then we'd rally off. But now we've had to come back down, and that's just how it is. I mean, we are consolidating at the low, and we've got all the body language on this short-term chart to show us that we will be dropping down, and that's what I've been telling you guys as well. The short-term chart and the long-term chart do tell us different things. I know that might be mind-blowing for a lot of people, but welcome to being a trader. That's just how it is. Sometimes the time frames are not aligned. In fact, most of the time the time frames are not aligned, and if you can't recognize that, you're going to lose a lot of money. So it's absolutely critical to be able to identify what the short-term trend looks like, what the long-term trend looks like, and then kind of balance out your analysis that way. So I think that is really, really important, and that is one of the main issues that we are facing with this little bit of analysis right here that I have been showing to you guys. And if we go ahead and take a look at Ethereum against Bitcoin as well, this is also very interesting because Ethereum against Bitcoin has seen a big rally up back in 2021 and then more or less just kept its gains. You can see here that it's basically just been sideways with this one big kind of drop down right here. And now we're actually starting to form, there's a butterfly pattern here. I don't know if you guys are interested in that kind of thing, but those of you that look at butterfly patterns, you're going to identify this. And it also is kind of playing into a falling wedge here, a 26% falling wedge. And the fact that we've been trading sideways over these last weeks guys, I mean, it's been weeks, is now showing us that we are starting to open up the possibility of, kind of getting towards the end, getting towards the conclusion of this falling wedge. And, what that could indicate is another pump to the upside. If it happens similar to what we saw before, then it would be another 26% pump, and that would put us back at about 0.08 BTC per Ethereum token, which is really interesting because that's exactly where we were topping out before. If we go ahead and take a closer look at the Ethereum Bitcoin chart right here, yeah, that works too. That's not the chart I wanted to use though. Let's go ahead and use the other one. What we can notice very, very clearly is that we have been more or less finding resistance within this band between these two red lines right here. And if we did get that kind of 26% pump to the upside, depending on where we get that pump from, we would be looking at topping out in a similar range to where we've been encountering some problems in the past over these last couple of years. And, that actually, to me, makes this analysis quite compelling, because if we've got a situation here on this chart where, a big breakout would only put us back at the top of the range and it wouldn't actually give us a breakout. It wouldn't actually put us on a track to, really, start breaking highs and, rallying up beautifully. When it looks like this, when it looks boring, when it looks like we're going to get a breakout, but we're staying in the same range, we're still topping out of that glass ceiling. That a lot of the times is how it's realistic analysis. And again, this might be upsetting for you. You might be like, 26% is nothing. But of course, if we really take a look at, what you can do with, the beauty of leverage in these markets, this kind of leverage, this kind of move here is more than enough to make, a very, very good amount of money. So that definitely does look exciting to me. We've been finding support here for quite some time. And, I think bottom line, if these markets do actually start performing well, and obviously the indices markets have been performing spectacularly, the dollar is now, I think by many, many different perspectives, the dollar is now quite overextended as well. So if we're expecting this to kind of pull back a little bit, then perhaps some more sunshine for the crypto markets. If that's the case, then I think it's quite reasonable to say that this kind of dry spell that Ethereum has been in will be coming to some sort of conclusion, will be coming to some sort of end, and potentially result in, just a lot of excitement in the space. It's been a long time of shit, and I think that's why everybody is so negative. But obviously, like I said, I mean, people are negative at the worst times, they're positive at the worst times, and that's why we don't want to align with them. That's why we're not in bullshit Telegram, bullshit Discord groups, or even on crypto Twitter, for that, because the more you kind of interact with bad traders, which is most traders, I can almost guarantee you that you don't interact with good traders because there just aren't that many. The more you're going to be fed bullshit, and the more you're going to be, kind of just piggybacking off being late, basically. And I'm here to kind of bring that perspective of, hey, we've been trending down for quite some time. We're at a critical area of support. It's Ethereum against Bitcoin. It's not the dollar chart. It definitely shows me some indications that this thing could be ready to pick up. And these are the signs that I just think people are ignoring right now, which is why I specifically want to be paying a lot more attention to them. If we take a look at Ethereum against the dollar a little bit closer, just on its own native chart right here, we haven't been performing amazingly. We've fallen out of a band of support right here, which is not ideal. We should be dropping lower, but we haven't quite triggered that fall either. But bottom line, we have still been in a falling wedge of sorts. I can very roughly draw some rudimentary lines for you here, and you can see quite clearly that this is one of those setups that could definitely start pointing to the upside again. So well worth keeping in mind here as we continue to go on in this market, because again, while everybody is getting very, very upset, we're not actually performing that badly. We're not getting big crashes. We're just slowly moving down. We're slowly correcting. We're slowly paying with time. We're paying with prices. And the market makes you pay for your euphoria with time-based corrections, i.e. trading sideways, or with price-based corrections, i.e. trading downwards. And we're doing both right now. So the market is killing us right now. The market is hurting us right now. And of course, I think that, just kind of relative to the losses we've had, I mean, for Ethereum, it's not even that bad, right? 23% in half a fucking year. It's just not that, look at the kind of drops we've had previously. I mean, this was 54% in 5 days and 23% in half a year. You know what I mean? Like, people are definitely blowing this whole thing out of perspective. Meanwhile, we're starting to print these bullish patterns. So again, I want to be, like, comfortable and fucking, standing in the same circle that everyone else is standing in and agreeing with everybody else, because it's just easier on my mental health. But bottom line, I'm here to make money. And of course, to do that, I need to pay attention to the facts much more than the sentiment. And of course, sentiment is interesting to look at because it's usually wrong, of course, for most traders. And right now there is a big divergence here. There's a big divergence that I'm seeing where the chart's just are not looking nearly as bad as everybody is saying. Meanwhile, we've performed fairly well off these lows. I mean, for Ethereum, it managed to pull a 2.5x from the low, and even up to its current price right now, it's still up by 90%. So how bearish are we really? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, the bears have apparently been in control for months, and what's the worst they could do? Just make us trade sideways for a couple of weeks? You know what I mean? Like, it's just not nearly where I think people are making these things out to be. And if we do go ahead and take a look at this Ethereum chart right here, what I want to highlight for you is that we are still, trending down with Ethereum. It is still trending down a little bit more than Bitcoin, but bottom line, these are the kind of patterns that, like, within an uptrend, you kind of fall down, you form these kind of patterns. This is almost exactly how Bitcoin has pulled off its weird deviation back here. So I'm just pointing out to you that, we've done this before. This doesn't have to mean alarm bells and, absolutely horrific things are going to be coming, especially at times like now where, I've shown you guys the open interest in one of my recent YouTube videos here. Open interest is abysmally low. In fact, the last time that open interest was this low was March of 2013. What am I talking about? March of 2023. And if we go back to March of 2023, that was basically where I entered my long right here. So, it's absolutely beautiful the way these numbers are working out. We have basically reset from a lot of different perspectives while the price is thousands of dollars higher. And with the open interest being this low, one of the big things that you and I need to keep in mind at this kind of stage in the market is that moves can be very, very manipulated. When you get things that look obviously bearish or obviously bullish, they can definitely go the other way, and it's a lot less reliable. That's actually what makes trading a lot more difficult at a time like this. And that's really important to keep in mind, especially if you want to do things like trading on leverage, because you'll fucking destroy yourself if you don't pay attention to this kind of thing. But what we do have right now is just one of those instances where, rightly, I mean, the chart is printing some pretty, potentially nasty signs right here, but it just doesn't have to be as scary as you think it would be at face value when you consider that actually the market is pulling tons and tons and tons and tons of fake outs, and it's almost to the point now where it actually pays to expect them a little bit more. I was expecting the fake out down here. That's why I felt so confident in entering the long position when Bitcoin managed to rally up to 21.5 again, and of course that was the kind of decision that was able to take me up to some really, really nice profit numbers earlier in this year. So that's looking absolutely beautiful from that perspective. If we do go ahead and take a look at the S&P 500, we are now basically at the end of the trading week, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, the trading week is now over, and we have seen a top out at the 4,600 area. We've pulled back a little bit, and now we are just kind of consolidating. It's very possible that this turns into one of these kind of patterns where, you just kind of consolidate and then bam, blast off, continue the trend on upwards. The S&P 500 doesn't move particularly, it moves much more reliably than the crypto markets, but it also, it has the weird, it has weird fake outs, it has weird back tests and stuff like that. This is an index of companies, right? So it's important to keep in mind that the S&P 500, more than most of the things that we analyze, is based on real world things. When we're looking at the Bitcoin chart, the Ethereum chart, okay, we can apply a lot of technicals to it and it works, but these are real world companies. These are subject to whatever, like a shipping crisis in the Suez Canal or something is going to affect the S&P 500. So it's a little bit harder to analyze from that perspective, but bottom line, what I'm seeing here is quite straightforward. It's quite clear. We have continued the uptrend beautifully, exactly as we predicted on this YouTube channel, and we are now basically consolidating. I don't see anything else other than consolidation. We've fallen down, we've risen up, and now we're just tightening. I mean, it is the definition by all accounts of what consolidation means, and of course, the fact that we're doing this within an uptrend, to me, is definitely a nice bright sign here in this index right here. So if this does start tanking downwards, this would turn into a dead cat bounce and exit all markets. Absolute catastrophe is just going to be around the corner most likely. If we do start breaking down from here, it would be very, very bad. We're probably going to see the dollar rally to massively higher levels, but again, realistically, do we think that's going to happen if we start applying some real world knowledge of what's going on with the dollar in the world and so on and so forth? I don't really see that happening. I think that this is a time where actually very interestingly, if we go ahead and take a look at oil, this is important for all of us, actually, especially those of us who are just normal, which is all of us as well. I think this is going to get bad again. Oil is rallying up. This is probably the effect of the United States pissing off the Middle East a lot over the last few months, and obviously oil production being cut down. So, naturally that's going to lead to higher prices in oil. And as we know by now, if you've been subscribed to this YouTube channel for some time, when oil does shoot up, that is typically going to have some knock-on effects on, the cost of shipping goods. The cost of everything really goes up, and of course that's what we call inflation. So with oil starting to take another rally up, inflation potentially being around the corner, more money printing, and so on and so forth, I definitely think that these indices, while everybody is shit scared, are just just ready to continue to rally up. Honestly, the more I say it, the more I grow convinced of this idea, because it feels like everywhere I go, everyone's got these bearish narratives right now, and I'm just not seeing the charts show that same thing to me. I want to be clear, this doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to make money, right? Like, if there's more inflation and then the markets go up, you might have more dollars in your account, but your dollars are weaker. So don't get excited either. It's shit for us too. It does mean that we're losing purchasing power, and we need to work and scramble to make more money in order to kind of earn that back, basically. But bottom line, at least we know what's going on, and knowing what's going on is the first step in protecting yourself from losing purchasing power, from your money getting weaker, and of course it's also the first step in making money as well. So if this thing continues to consolidate over the next week, then that's just beautiful for me. I think just really into across September, if it just kind of cools off a little bit, we have a nice bullish October, November, that to me would make a lot of sense. I think for Bitcoin, it's also poised to do something similar. I think if the dollar starts to retrace down a little bit more, then that's going to put Bitcoin potentially in a really nice position where we can actually leave this range and then start getting a little bit higher. Bearing in mind that this is a sideways range, so naturally, we've now tested the downside pretty clearly. Maybe it's time to start testing the upside across the next month or two. It's certainly possible. Definitely not something that I want you to ignore the possibility of, because we are still, as far as I can see, in a sideways range. And of course, I think these kind of sideways ranges, they do need to be respected. They do need to be taken seriously. They play out way more often than whatever staircase to hell or staircase to heaven that most people think we're actually seeing. It's usually just these kind of sideways ranges that prevail in the market. So that's also important to be keeping in mind. But with that, guys, I am going to be heading off. It was a relatively quick one right here on this YouTube channel today. There's still not a whole lot going on. If you have any particular things that you want me to look in specifically, then let me know with the comment section down below. If you have enjoyed this one, you know exactly what to do. Hit up the likes, subscribe, tick the bell, do all that good stuff. Take advantage of the beautiful offers available to you with the links in the description down below. And I'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.